Support comes from Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to sustainable and sound conservation of the state's forests, which support more than 41,000 Missouri jobs, resulting in a $10 billion industry. ChooseWood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha.
The heart of it is relationships and getting to know people.
And how is it that you know that you are doing good work, that it's working? Well, first and foremost is at least in my own experience, let's just make it very personal. When you know you've touched somebody's heart, that they know that they matter and that they're loved, that tells me it's working. The Congregation of the Mission has had roots in St. Louis for a long time. In 1818, the first Vincentians, named for St. Vincent de Paul, came to St. Louis, where they established a Catholic community of priests and brothers dedicated to serving poor people and marginalized communities. And in the last 2 centuries since their arrival, Vincentians have been part of local history. For instance, the first bishop of the Archdiocese of St. Louis was Bishop Joseph Rosati, who was a Vincentian and the namesake of St. Louis All-Girls Catholic High School, Rosati Kane. It is also part of the city's landscape, both in the form of existing churches and, especially, one that's new. This Saturday, Vincentians will dedicate a new mission house near the intersection of Interstate 44 and Grand. And here to talk with us about how that new building will be used and what needs it will fill for its Catholic community and the community at large, Father McDevitt, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Elaine. Appreciate it, and thank you for the welcome.
Before we talk about the new mission house on Lafayette, let's learn about who St. Vincent de Paul was. Mm-hmm. What are the needs to know about him, Father McDevitt?
St. Vincent de Paul lived in the 17th century, and he was came from peasant roots, and his desire was to be ambitious, to be in the priesthood, for himself and his family. And then he was touched by the poverty of the people in Paris and in France during his time, and really changed his life. And he turned from that ambitious kind of way to saying, no, my life has to be about servicing people who are most in need. And that changed his life. And then many began to follow him and his example, both priests, lay women, Ladies of Charity are one of the first organizations he founded, the Confraternity of Charity, which is now the St. Vincent de Paul Society, or at least somewhat like the St. Vincent de Paul Society, and ourselves, the Congregation of the Mission. Mm-hmm. So began to follow him and to follow his example. But he was very big about that we can't do this alone. We got to do this together. So I love the name of our community, Congregation of the Mission, because we can only do mission together. We can only do mission when and Vincent was about bringing men and women of all walks of life together to address the greatest needs of poverty, not just direct service, but also change the systems that keep people poor.
Okay. That is something that I certainly am learning for the first time. Now, there are people who are familiar with the name St. Vincent de Paul, and they may identify it with St. Vincent de Paul Parish near Interstate 44, the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, which you've mentioned, and their local thrift stores. That's definitely what came to mind for me. How is the Congregation of the Mission Western Province related to those?
We are all under the umbrella of what we call the Vincentian family. We have great collaborations with like the society. For instance, the new national president-elect, John Barry, will be coming to this dedication, coming from Atlanta. So our collaborations with them are very close. The Ladies of Charity, So all of us see ourselves as a part of a family, and we work hard to work together and to be in partnership with one another.
Mm-hmm. Now let's take it back to the arrival in St. Louis.
Yes.
The Vincentians have those roots that go back, like over 200 years.
Yes.
Why did they come to St. Louis then?
Good question. When they came from Italy, Rosati, Father Rosati at the time, and Felix de Andreas, they were offered a place to stay in Perryville, Missouri. They were offered land. They were offered a place to begin their mission. And Bishop de Burgh was the bishop of what was Louisiana Purchase, I called him Louisiana Territory, and he also invited them to come, and then it was from there that we came to do training for priests in this area. And then we came to St. Louis. If you go to the old cathedral, there's a plaque about the first novitiate here in the United States. Our novitiate was done there. And then, we taught at Kenrick and Glennon for over 175 years.
Okay. So when you talk about the old cathedral,
right.
Are we talking about the one that's right here on Lindell?
No, that's the new cathedral. The old cathedral's under the arch, and it's right on the river. Mm-hmm. And Bishop Rosati is buried under the altar there, and he built that cathedral, and that was the first cathedral. So, and the first, if you say novitiate, the novitiate is the beginning course for people wanting to be Vincentian priests or brothers.
Okay, like novice.
That's it.
Right. So. When they first arrived, you'd mentioned Perryville.
Yes.
Now, for about 25 years and up till about 2021, the Vincentian headquarters was actually in Earth City, which is about a half hour from here.
Right.
Why was it there, and why did it move back to St. Louis? Because it was here originally, right?
It was.
Yeah.
We moved the headquarters to Earth City about 26 years ago. And it had to do, if I understand, because I wasn't in leadership then, but space and, because we were growing. But when I became provincial 3 years ago, our the first priority was mission effectiveness, mission advancement. And that was our first priority. And you can only really be effective and advance your mission when you're visible, available, and engaged. Mm-hmm. So the decision was we need to come back into the city to be neighbors in the city. We also saw the great need in the city. For Vincentians, the poor are at our heart, and the poor are found in urban areas, so we needed to be closer to the poor. But also we wanted to collaborate with other partners in religious circles and nonprofit circles. Mm-hmm. And so we've been on Forest Park now in the Midtown area now for 2 years, and we have seen a great increase in just relationships and building relationships. When you talk about advancing mission, the heart of it is relationships and getting to know people.
Right. Now, this brings us to the new Vincentian Mission House that will be dedicated this Saturday.
Yes.
Tell us about the house and what it is meant to be used for.
Yes. The house is, like you said, it's off of 44 and Grand on Lafayette. It's actually next door to the old Loretta College, which is now the Dominican Priory. Okay, and so our second priority was our what we call formation program, or our training program for priests and brothers. Mm-hmm. We made a decision to make that a priority in terms of both recruitment and good education and formation. And so one afternoon, Father Mark Wiedek, who's the president, Dominican president of Aquinas, called me and said, you have to look at the house next door. It's the old governor's mansion, and it's for sale. And that's how it began. And what I'm really proud of is many supporters came to help us purchase that house, and many supporters came to help us renew that house. That house is there for, number one, to be a place of discernment and recruitment for men who are interested in vocation to the Vincentian life. Mm-hmm. It should be a place of hospitality and welcome. It should be a place that really idealizes all of our values. And then it is a place where men will learn both in terms of theology and the Vincentian way of life there. Our students, our Vincentian students that live there, will go to Aquinas Institute with their neighboring brothers next door. Okay. The other part of this house, having it here in St. Louis, was the decision that we needed to come back to our ancestral home. We are very close to Perryville. It's only about about an hour and a half away, and that's where many of our elders are, who have great wisdom and love for their church and love for God and we wanted our younger members to get to know them. We also, in that neighborhood, there's great proximity to people who are economically challenged. It's a neighborhood that is greatly diverse. Also was a decision to be committed to St. Louis, to the revival of St. Louis. St. Louis is a great city with a great history. We're a part of that history, and so the decision, that building, which is the old governor's mansion, was abandoned for, I think, 20, 30 years. No one's lived in it. And so it has been revived, and I think, like ourselves, the Dominicans took the Loretto College, which was also empty for years, and took an old structure and made it new. We're taking an old structure and making it new. And so the hope is that we will be able to form, invite people to get to know us, and also to form people in our way of life.
Yeah. So what will it be like to live there then, for the 7 or so clergy in training who choose to do so?
Yes. Well, they besides going to school, and is important. They will also have a life of prayer. So praying morning prayer, Mass, and evening prayer every night. Common meditation, which is a part of our tradition, that we come together in silence and pray. Pray the Miraculous Medal Novena is a part of our tradition, so that we will steep them in our traditions. But also another very important part is they will be in apostolic service to the wider community. For Vincentians, yes, we pray, but we serve. We are missionaries. We're, the streets, as Vincent said to the Daughters of Charity, who are our sisters, the streets are our monasteries. The streets are our church. So their way of life would be that. But it's also steeped in the sense of community and common life.
So there are different approaches to immersion.
It is, and it also forms men in a specific charism and a specific mission. Our Dominican brothers are very close to us, and they're what they call part of the Mandecan group of orders. So they're a little more contemplative in their prayer than we are, and but there's different approaches to serve the same mission. That's because we share their building. We share, we're with them in Aquinas. Our office is on the ground floor of Aquinas Institute. And what I've come to learn in 2 years, yes, we have different ways of approaching. We dress differently, we look differently, but we love the same thing, and we love the people we serve, and we are brothers in mission, no matter, whatever our charism is.
Now, speaking of formation, how is it that you make the case to a young person about becoming a Vincentian?
Okay. First of all, if and I've done formation work in my past, you'll find young men who, first of all, are interested in serving people. And they're interested in serving people not for themselves. They're interested in serving people in a very selfless way for them, And so, I think the case we can make is you could do this and enjoy this, and you don't have to be alone. You'll have companions to work with you. You'll have companions who will value what you value. You'll have companions that you can live with and you can play with and enjoy. And I think the attraction for us is that we are about serving the poor in the community. We live a common life, and there's a simplicity about our life, And I think in this day and age, young people are looking and hungry for that. And again, that you're not out there by yourself, and you'll have the experience of being together makes an impact. I've been a Vincentian for about 47 years, and I've enjoyed the fact that I can make an impact greater than I can by myself with the community. Like this is not about me. This is, and that brings great joy and satisfaction.
We need to take a quick break.
Sure.
But we'll
Thanks,
be back
Elaine.
shortly to continue this conversation with Father Patrick McDevitt. Is there anything about this conversation that resonates with you? If you have a question or comment about this topic, give us a call at 314-382-8255. That's 382-TALK. Or you can send us a tweet at STL on air or email us at talk@stlpr.org. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
Now back to our conversation with Father Patrick McDevitt. He's the Provincial Superior for the Congregation of the Mission Western Province, known more commonly as the Vincentians. We're talking today about that community and how the dedication of a new mission house near the intersection of Interstate 44 and Grand in St. Louis reflects past and present commitments to Vincentian values as well as larger church needs. Father, you talked several times about serving poor people and marginalized communities. What does that look like in the work that you and the Vincentians do?
Our missions are always first and foremost about those who are most in need. So here in St. Louis, for instance, St. Vincent's Parish in St. Louis, which by the way, we now serve St. Pius V as well as part of the All Things New, is about direct service. Secondly, about doing what we can to systemically bring change to people who are faced with poverty, and also inspiring and helping others who can to serve the poor. So like, for instance, at St. Catherine Labouré in Sappington, this is a parish, they always say we're a parish for and with the poor. Even though their economic needs are better, they're very supportive to St. Vincent's Parish in St. Louis. They're very supportive to our mission in Kenya. So we cultivate partners of means. Like, for instance, St. Vincent de Paul worked with the Ladies of Charity, were all women of means, women who had economic support. And he worked with them to help with their resources to serve the poor. So that's what our mission looks like. So another part of our mission would be to, if you will, form and educate people for service to the poor, which means to give them an ability to reflect on their experience of serving the poor. Also to tie that experience to Catholic social teaching, and then to help them understand their obligation of advocacy for justice. So that's kind of the formation that we would do with people who partner with us. Again, we don't do anything alone, and we don't do just with ourselves as priests and brothers. We work with as many people as possible. So again, Vincent was very strong about you have to know poor people. You've got to be in relationship with them. It's not a head thing. It's really a heart and spirit thing. And then work with people who are also interested in serving the poor and give them a formation to give meaning to that. So that's how I would summarize it.
And can you provide an example of how direct service through relationship is done sort of in a day-to-day sort of situation?
Okay. all of this would be in any of our missions, but I would just use, because it's local, St. Vincent's Parish here in St. Louis, and I would include St. Pius as well. But St. Vincent's does, they have meals every day for people, and then at the end of the month and the beginning of the month, they have dinner. They also help people in terms of any other kind of people, especially on the streets, but people who may have utility concerns. But again, much of it is being done by volunteers. People, St. Pius does a lot with the immigrant community, and again, in this day and age, people who are refugees and immigrants are, some of the most needy people we have. So these communities have direct service, and again, it's not just us as priests and brothers doing it, but it's other partners. So that's an example.
Yeah. And how is it that you know that you are doing good work, that it's working? Well, first and foremost at least in my own experience, let's just make it very personal. When you've touched somebody's heart, that they know that they matter and that they're loved, that tells me it's working. Even people who may not come out of poverty, but if, again, that's always the dream and the hope. But what's the greater value is they come out feeling loved, loved by me, loved by the people they serve, but also ultimately loved by God. That's how you know it's working. And I have countless personal experiences of people who just have felt the love of God in their hearts. And then it's always, I feel loved in that moment too, because for Vincent de Paul, he says, we need to be, he says, evangelized by the poor, which means you need to be loved and changed by the poor. So when I'm being changed by poor people, I know it's working. But again, we also want to, I taught statistics at DePaul, so I like numbers too. And, and Vincent de Paul was also, if you will, a good leader, a good business person. So we want to see how we're making impact as well. But we could be making tons of impact, but if people are not feeling love, which is the first priority, then maybe something is amiss.
Yeah, but that's the first. If they're, and you know it when you see it, and again, since the 17th century, this charism has been alive, and most Catholics and even non-Catholics, the name Vincent de Paul is probably one of the most well-known saints because of that.
Right. Now, charism, does this then get to community? Because Vincentians are considered a community rather than an order.
Right.
But in many respects, you'd operate, in similar fashion as the Jesuits and the Franciscans. What is it then that distinguishes Vincentians from other Catholic orders, especially in a place like St. Louis, where there seem to be quite a few of them?
We, as any of us, and even Catholic, non-Catholic, and even non-believers, I believe we have more in common than we have different. Okay, but our differences and our diversity is also our strength. And so I think for us, when I say our charism, our way of being with each other, our way of being with the poor and the laity is, if you will, a unique style. Again, we have similarities with both the Dominicans and the Jesuits because they too believe that systemic change through education lifts people up. I think for us, again, at the end of the day, the mission is our top priority. And, I'm not saying that that's not for the Jesuits or the Dominican or other orders, but our approach to it is different. One of the things that people have told me about Vincentians, which I love, is people have said, you're kind of the ordinary priest of the church. Okay. And I love that. And I'm not saying, but I think that does capture who we are. There's an ordinariness about us, and people who know us, they feel comfortable with us. And, I grew up with the Vincentians, so but I'm not, so there's a earthiness about us. I think there's definitely. Sure. And that's, as you know, every gift has its challenge, so, but I But we identify first and foremost with brothers and sisters who are poor.
Right.
That's our first.
Now, back in January, we spoke with a young priest, Reverend Andrew Auer, who grew up in the St. Louis region and then served in Ellisville, St. Louis County, and he has since been appointed to the Diocese of Jefferson City. Now, when I spoke with him then, Father Auer mentioned a shortage of clergy.
Yes.
And I've scribbled down these notes, diversity, companionship, ordinariness. When it comes to what is happening with numbers of clergy, how do you think it is that Vincentians in particular can recruit people to become priests?
Again, I think the way we approach service is one. One gentleman who may be listening, who I said to him, I said, we're a band of country boys. And even though I'm a Chicago boy, country boys, because again, Vincent was very much about the rural poor. If this is a place where you can find a place, and we're very diverse and we're international, and I think that there's a place for everyone in this and with every style. But another, one of our present seminarians, when I spoke with him some time ago before he entered, I said to him, if you want to be a leader and really make change in the church, be a priest, be a brother. Because again, I have learned in this role as priest, I can affect change in the church and in society because of my role, and that's exciting. So,
and what is the need currently for Catholic clergy, and what is your take on the shortage?
The need is great, and it's not just to celebrate the sacraments of Eucharist and confession and others, but it is great to be a presence in the midst of the people in the community. As a priest, my role is, yes, definitely to celebrate the sacraments and be there for people, but I also know it's important for me to walk with people. And that's why we're in St. Louis again, because we want to be present. That's really important. So the need is great. And we're aging, and yet, there's a real need for people to hear good news and to be comforted and be lifted, no matter what their faith is. I mean, as a Catholic priest and as a Vincentian, my mission is to all the people. The shortage, there's a lot of variables that go with the shortage. It's, it is about, you see it in the economic changes in countries. Even now, countries that have had high numbers are now changing because of economic. People have more options. But unfortunately, the scandals and the sexual abuse scandals, I think, now rocked the church, but rocked people's confidence, and that's very sad. And sometimes we have to kind of work. We definitely have to work through that. And so, but again, sometimes it's been my experience that young men don't see that as an option. But I have asked people, and then they have taken up, why don't you think about this? And also, faith communities, churches need to encourage their young people to serve, their young people to be religious. And as we know, the number of younger people being a part of a religious community is less and less, and that's another factor.
So what are you hoping to see just in this last minute? With the opening of this new mission house, what will make you feel like this was the right time to do it?
Thank you. You'll see the church alive there. We have 3 bishops coming. We have 3 other provincials coming. There'll be Dominican students. There'll be our students. There'll be a mix of some diocesan priests. So the church will be present. So this is not just about us. We're going to have the Mass outside under a tent. So we hope people from the neighborhood would come. I'm hoping that there is this energy about a new beginning, a positive beginning, about looking at this house as a place where anybody can come. This is a place that does mission, and places that do mission welcome people and have hospitality. So this event should be about energy, but also it shows our strong ties to the Archdiocese of St. Louis, our strong ties to Belleville Diocese, and the Jesuits and the Dominicans and the Franciscans here.
Father Patrick McDevitt is the Provincial Supervised Superior for the Congregation of the Mission Western Province, more commonly known as the Vincentians. The Vincentians dedicate a new mission house near the intersection of Interstate 44 and Grand this Saturday. Father, thank you for talking with us today.
Thank you.
This episode was produced by our executive producer, Alex Hoyer.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
St. Louis on the Air proudly supports local artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to sustainable and sound conservation of the state's forests, which support more than 41,000 Missouri jobs, resulting in a $10 billion industry. ChooseWood.com.